Well, I was spending a lot of time at the office talking with a bunch of people about the World Cup, and obviously Team USA lost last night. I had this kind of like epiphany. So many people get so mad, like, why isn't the USA better at soccer? And it's just like, I'm at that point where I'm like, well, what more do you want? We won the last major basketball tournament, the Olympics of 2024. We're the best basketball country on the planet. We just won the 2026 Winter Olympic hockey. And men's and women's, by the way, but I'm talking about men's. We're the best hockey country on the planet. So we're two of the top 5 biggest sports on the planet. We're already the best at. No other country competes in football. That is the largest sport in our country, and it takes up a ginormous amount of our athletes. We're the number 1 golf country in the world. I know people could argue like, oh, you'd have to argue Europe versus America, but like the amount of golfers we produce, the top golfers, Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, all the greats, Scotty Scheffler, the current great, American golfers. And so you have those sports. And then I haven't even talked about baseball yet, which we're not probably the best baseball country in the world anymore, but we're in the top 3 on any given year. And the amount, again, of people that play baseball, it's our sport. It's a national pastime. So you think about all of that. And then people are like, well, you lost to a country in Belgium that's the population of Ohio. It's like, yeah, well, what else is Belgium doing? How many athletes do we have? We're stretched too thin. I know soccer heads hate like the whole, well, what if Odell Beckham Jr. just committed to soccer? It's like, I think that's a real thing. I really think that's a real thing.
There's more choices.
USA versus Belgium. Dan, USA versus Belgium was just simply like those dudes. That's an A team, and if we feel like a B team,
yeah.
It felt like in college football, like when a MAC school gets scheduled against an SEC school, where you're like, oh yeah, they're kind of different. That's just different. Yeah. They're on a different.
Well, they're also, I think, coaching's different. I think they take the sport more seriously overall. Like, obviously, all of the players and the coaching staff at this level for the U.S., you're not going to question them taking it seriously. But just like culturally, they grow up in this environment with like taking it super seriously. And I think you could see it watching a lot of these teams play, the cohesiveness as a full unit up and down the field, whereas the U.S. did kind of seem sporadic throughout this World Cup. They're kind of just really athletic guys doing things individually, whereas the others operate as a collective, and that leads to you getting beat a lot of times because one mistake is going to get taken advantage of at this stage.
I completely agree. It just drove me crazy watching that game. I'm like, oh, okay, we hit it. We hit the wall. We are not one of the top 8.
Yeah, we didn't belong there.
We're one of the top 16. We belong in that region. But to get to the top 8, to win that game and get to the top 8, we're at home with supposedly our golden generation of strikers. Obviously, our defense isn't as good as they've said in years past or whatever, like goalkeeper and things like that. There's no Tim Howard back there, but this is supposed to be the golden age of like the strikers, and you're at home, and it was like a boat race. It was clearly not. It was just like those guys are more talented than those guys. And when you think about the amount of men that play sports in America, it's a lot of men. But when you think about the amount of choices and how that talent is dispersed, right? And then you think about like all the other choices that Americans have. I'm a famous example in our high school class of the guy who was 6'5", 280, who should have been starting at left tackle as a sophomore, but stopped playing football because I'd rather do theater.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen in Belgium. You don't give up. You don't get like there's like we have. Think about all the other choices that American men have growing up.
And what choices they're going to make is always going to be non-soccer because that's the one professional sport we have that doesn't pay.
You don't make any money.
As much.
You don't make.
Whereas overseas, that's the sport that pays the most.
It pays,
right?
So yes, 100%.
That's an obvious.
It is a huge. It's a huge thing. And for women, think about why our women are so dominant. Again, their choices are more narrow. if you want to be a superstar female athlete, you have the WNBA now. I mean, it really hasn't been around for that long. And certainly to the level of you're getting paid and treated like a star, it's very recent. But before that, it was Mia Hamm in the women's soccer. Like women's soccer was superstar in this country. Yeah. Besides like the individual gymnastics or figure skating and things like that. I truly am. I'm truly content with being like, hey, America was where it should be. We should make the top 16. I would have loved to have won that game. I would have loved to have seen them keep going. I was rooting my butt off for them. Love betting them. But at some point, I'm not gonna fault it. But I think it's a real, true. People who poo-poo on that idea of like, what if LeBron James played soccer? I think that's a real thing. We have way too many options in America, and soccer is a bottom tier priority in the sports world, let alone all of the other options that our country gives young men that other countries do not give young men.
Yeah. It really is probably as simple as that.
And now we can focus on
now
football.
We can talk football and what is atop that priority list, I would say, for most most young men who are looking to be professional athletes.
Get that cheddar.
And we get to talk head coaches this time around because we've got 10 new head coaches in the league this year for a variety of teams that are in very different positions as a franchise. So it's going to be interesting to look at what the expectations are of these coaches, what we think the expectations in general should be on them based on what we know of these coaches, but also the expectations based on their franchises and where they should be after the 2026 season. So excited to dive in.
That's an elite graphic. That is like, you did Mike McCarthy dirty by putting him on there with LaFleur.
Look, no offense. There aren't many great photos of Mike McCarthy that exist out there. So we'll just go that route. We'll just go team by team, I guess, list off the coaches and give our thoughts. The Arizona Cardinals, who have had some turnover over the last, 10, 15 years, really, hire Mike LaFleur to be their head coach. So, of course, LaFleur comes to them from the Sean McVay tree and obviously brings an offensive mind to this group. They get rid of Kyler Murray, so he's got obviously kind of a clean slate there at quarterback. Jacoby Brissett's there. They drafted Carson Beck, so I'm not missing like another notable quarterback in that room, am I? I don't think so.
Brissett hasn't showed up to camp.
Yeah, right. So he's looking for some new money. So there's that baseline of, setting the stage for what he's coming into. But that defense under Jonathan Gannon did start to improve. They've had some recent draft picks that you think are pretty solid players, and Marvin Harrison, obviously the highlight there in that receiving group. Of Michael Floyd, also a young player there. James Conner's coming back in the running back room, and
Jeremiah Love.
You got Jeremiah Love with their top pick. So there's some offensive firepower here to work with. What are your expectations of Mike LaFleur, who, I mean, he really wasn't that talked about in previous head coaching cycles. So he's a younger guy and coming in with probably the minimal expectations of all these other coaches, given the market and the state of the team. This team hasn't had many expectations recently.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think the expectations are low, but what I would need to see if I'm a Cardinals fan is the exact thing I said, 3 years ago with Gannon was the problem after that first year was you're the defensive guy, and you came into that defense was not good that first year, and it only incrementally got better. If I'm a Cardinals fan, I want to see kind of like what I saw in Chicago last year. Now, I'm not saying you have to win as much, but I have to look at it and be like, oh, wow, we got something here offensively. Like we have a scheme, we have an identity offensively. I think that identity is going to be running the football with a lot of play action stuff. You have McBride, you have a really good receiving core, but you don't have a quarterback that you really trust. If Jacoby Brissett ever shows up, I want to see offensive competency. I want to see scoring. I don't care if we lose a bunch, but I want to know that it's like, hey, we got a guy that is like his brother, is like McVay, is like the tree he comes from, a real capable offensive mind that can scheme us into wins when we get the talent to finish out this roster.
Yeah, I think this will be the biggest impact from a scheme perspective that I would expect to see of the last several of the Arizona Cardinals head coaching decisions, because even Kubiak coming in, there were lofty expectations, but he was coming from a college system, and you're like, okay, well, there was still a little bit of questions around, is that going to play at this level? Like we'll have to wait and see. But with LaFleur, you've got the McVay system, in your back pocket, and you've done it now and worked with him at the NFL level for multiple years. So I do expect that impact to be a little bit greater. They won 3 games last year, Mark. Is there even a win total? I know you said that you're not necessarily looking for wins, but if I were to say, like, I would personally like to see 6 wins out of this group to at least double their win total, to show that, that impact is actually having a in-game impact, if that makes sense.
See, I'm going to go a little oppo and say, if I was a Cardinals fan, I'd want to see exciting offensive diagrams. I'd like to see exciting use of my weapons, but I'd like to lose games because they need a quarterback, right? Like I want them to have 3 wins next year, in the sense where they're in that 1, 2, 3 slot to get one of those top 3 quarterbacks next year. That's tough, because that means, do you have a bad coach? You'd like to find that way to be like, no, our coach is good, but we still lose games. It's a really, really tight rope to walk. I think Cardinals fans would take winning 6 games because their coach is scheming them to wins, and then maybe having to trade up to get a quarterback, or maybe they're then the destination for the veteran free agent. I'm not sure, but I think ideally less games you win, the better for Arizona.
Well, I would agree. I think we're talking 2 different things, though, because I think that's talking about what you would want to happen versus what would be a realistic expectation if he were a good coach. Because my thought is kind of like the impact that Dan Campbell had. Yeah. Yes, they didn't win very many games, but the impact was felt pretty immediately. And you knew that, okay, on the horizon here.
Did they start like 0-9 or 0-10 in Detroit under Dan Campbell, and then they got that first win, and then it really, like, the tides turned?
Yeah, and so, like, that's an example of where the wins didn't manifest. Yeah. So this is what I think you're saying is, like, the wins didn't manifest.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I think if everything works out well with that roster, if he's the guy, I think they could. I think 6 wins would be absolutely the mark. You'd say, yeah, hey, with a weird quarterback room, but this much offensive talent, maybe we can find our way to 6 wins.
Yeah. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Kevin Stefanski. We know a lot about him from Cleveland. He now gets Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix Jr. to duke it out over there and see who's going to come out on top.
That is a tough fight.
Yeah. Well, and talk about, I mean, we went from offensive weapons to offensive weapons. I mean, Kevin Stefanski gets this laid out for him beautifully. He's just missing the clear quarterback of the future there, but a better quarterback situation than Mike LaFleur.
Yeah, again, this is another one of those where, like, I think in a perfect scenario, they don't win a ton of games, but they look good. Because again, if you're telling me Kevin Stefanski ends up with Arch Manning or the kid out of Oregon, you know what I mean, and all of a sudden, like, he ends up with a top 5 pick and gets one of those elite quarterbacks, then I think that's a dream scenario for Atlanta, right?
They had 8 wins last year.
They had 8 wins. So he's a better coach than what they got. So I think they have to. I think probably 8 wins is realistic to say you get back to 8 wins. And in that case, I don't know what they'd have to do to go get their quarterback in the future. But yeah, Bijan, Drake London, they bring back Kyle Pitts. I expect Tua to win the job and to start. This quarterback situation feels a lot like the Minnesota quarterback situation too, where it's like the only reason Tua is here and the only reason Kyler is here is because we have zero faith in the guy that we drafted 2 years ago. That's the feeling in my world. So yeah, I'd say 8 wins. If they're less than 8 wins, I think I'd be concerned unless it's like the quarterback play was just so bad that we believe in Stefanski, but it was obvious the quarterbacks, just these guys can't win eight or more games in a year.
Yeah, I mean, their division as well helps Stefanski a lot in terms of what the results could end up being. If you told me that they go 10-7 and win the division next year, I'm not going to be shocked. I mean,
I wouldn't be.
That division was tight already last year. I don't know how confident we are in Tampa moving forward and things. So I think the expectation absolutely should be for them that they win 9 games and are really competitive and showing signs of growth and showing that the system that Stefanski has put in place clearly works and that they are truthfully a quarterback away from
he's the
corner.
He's the best coach in that division. He's the best coach in that division.
Yeah. And they should expect in a few years to be the owners of that division, quite frankly. I mean, the talent that they have is unmistakable. And it's up for the getting. So I think they
are the premier destination probably next year for the quarterback who wants traded or wants out, or for the team that goes, we're going to give up however many picks it takes to just go into the top 3 to get one of the 2 or 3 guys, because they really they feel like they are right now if you put, I don't know, pick a name, Dak Prescott on that team. Oh, it would be like minimum 10 wins.
They're winning that division. Yeah. Baltimore Ravens get a new head coach in Jesse Minter.
Mr. Minter.
Interesting because Baltimore did kind of have a fall last year and they've been trending in the wrong direction, but they clean house. They did get rid of Harbaugh. Obviously Todd Monken's not there anymore. Minter, being a defensive guy, comes to clean up the defense that's been an issue in recent years. I mean, given that they have Lamar, given that he's a defensive guru, and they've got some players to work with, and Kyle Hamilton and screw his name, Mbakwe or
Matabike.
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 Yeah. So should the expectation be that like he turns them into a top 10 defensive unit and then they win the division next year? I mean,
listen, that would be incredible. I think, to me, my expectation with Baltimore is to get back above 500. They were 8-9. Like, okay, you're going to get to 9 wins at least. And I want to see, obviously, an improvement defensively. You have Roquan Smith. You have Trey Hendricks. You have Matabike. This is not a defense that is void of talent. And you have a defensive specialty head coach. My biggest concern, though, is still offensively, because no one thought the day that Lamar Jackson went in to be a starter that John Harbaugh would get him to 2 MVPs. No one predicted that. Predicted that. But that is now the standard. Lamar Jackson's standard is top 3 quarterback in the NFL MVP. So to me, the expectation is, okay, while you have this defensive head coach, does the offense fall apart? And that is a guy, as we know, who's never called plays before. So for me, I think my baseline is, if they're not 9 wins, that's a real concern. And if again, health, everything considered.
Yeah. If Lamar plays the whole season,
I would say, though, if the over under is 10.5, I would probably take the under. If I think that, to me, I'm like, that's a 10-win team based on just the uncertainty of how it's all going to work. I think we'll know a lot more about what the Ravens' ceiling is by like week 2 or 3 to see what that offense actually looks like. I have faith he'll fix the defense. It's a great talent and a talented mind. My concern is 100% with the offense.
And I think that the defense isn't as needed against the division of offenses that they play against. Like they have to worry about the Steelers offense and the Browns offense. Like that's not that big of a deal to worry about. You just need to outscore those teams, which you should be able to do.
Yeah.
Obviously the Bengals is a different story, but yeah. So,
that's one of those, we talk about it all the time. Like, well, if you hire an offensive coach, then you don't have to worry about your offensive coordinator. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, so this is when we're talking about a defensive head coach, obviously, we just saw it with the Seahawks. Defensive head coach won a Super Bowl with a great offensive coordinator. That's the biggest concern about the Seattle team going into next year. It's like, okay, was that a fluke? And now they're going to fall off the map because they lost their offensive coordinator. This is obviously the biggest question for Minter. Like that to me is the biggest question mark.
Perhaps the biggest difficulty I have with this entire list is Joe Brady of the Buffalo Bills, because they're coming off of such a successful season for the most part, right? And this is a team that's routinely in the conversation of making the Super Bowl. Now, they didn't win the division last year, so I guess you could say, come back and win the division. But the expectation for this team has been to get to the AFC Championship game every year because you have Josh Allen. So I guess the biggest thing is to just show the biggest expectation I have for Joe Brady is to show that he can run this offense that showcases more than Josh Allen, that shows that they can consistently rely on other aspects of the offense that aid Josh Allen and not just force him to be a Superman all the time, right? They've had successful run games in the past, like James Cook. That's been a big part of it. I expect that to continue, but now I want to see, how do you dial up this route tree and get these wide receivers to a place where they can flourish, so that it isn't just Josh Allen having to make ridiculous throws and ridiculous, 15-yard scampers for first down all the time. I guess that to me would be the biggest impact, because wins and losses, I mean, the expectation is to not fall below 11 wins next season, but
he's got to get to 11. He's got to get to 11. And then to me, the bigger concern, if I'm him, is that the reason I have this job is because the guy who hired me to do the job I just had kept making some questionable decisions in high pressure moments. Now, he got them to high pressure moments. He got them deep in the playoffs. And then you would question what happened. Things would fall apart. Things would go undone. He would make a not call a timeout. There's all these little the little things. And now I'm a first-time decision maker as a head coach, and I've got to get myself to those situations and then make better decisions than the guy. Like it's a really tough job. If they don't have 11 wins, and Josh Allen is not in the MVP conversation, that is a yikes moment for Buffalo fans and for Brady. He's got to keep that offense humming. And you add DJ Moore, a guy who you were electric with in Carolina. So let's make sure that offense is all cylinders, ready to go, and feels like what you just said. It's not just Josh Allen, which it's crazy because he's been in control of the offense. So maybe he'll feel a little bit more freedom than he felt. Maybe he was feeling the pressure to do X when he wasn't really his thing. So we'll see, but absolutely 11 wins. It's got to get to at least 11 wins.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hold the standard to Andy Reid, but I think it's a good example of like Patrick Mahomes still is able to put on the cape and be the hero. We see that all the time, but we also see the impact of Andy Reid on the offense. I want to see that from Joe Brady as well, and not just from Josh Allen. Next up, Cleveland Browns. They won 5 games last year. They bring in Todd Monken from Baltimore. I don't expect this to go well, personally. The personnel isn't there for him to work with one.
Listen, they had 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks.
They did. We have Deshaun Watson, Shadur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel essentially battling for the starting gig. None of those are good options. They don't have much to be excited about. Now, granted, they've got some new offensive firepower from the draft that they've brought in. They get rid of Myles Garrett. My expectation is that they go 5-12 again or worse. That's what I expect from this offense. But I mean, what do you see from Todd Monken here?
Listen, if I'm a Browns fan, I don't know if I'm wanting it to be good or wanting it to be bad.
Right.
Because I don't have faith in Todd Monken. I would be like, I kind of want this to be a 1-year, you steer the ship into the disaster 3-win season.
Gerard Mayo.
We get the number 1. Yes, we get the number 1 pick. And then it's a complete clean house. Because by this time next year, you won't have to deal with Deshaun Watson anymore. That contract becomes finally movable, like cut, move, bait, whatever. And so there's that. I think realistically, this team does have talent. You got Judy, you got Concepcion, obviously Judkins. I mean, if Watson's your starter or Shador, I mean, they both can play. It's not like they can't play in the NFL. Your defense, while you lost Myles Garrett, is still pretty darn good. You have Graham, you have Verse, you have people on the back end. I'm trying to think again.
They have the linebacker.
Denzel Ward, Schweisinger. Yeah, like they have talent. Like it exists there. So if you end up with 3 or less wins, it's probably because it was an all-around quarterback and head coach disaster. I don't know if that's the worst thing for them, but I will say I think that Monken, he has been successful at times. I think they can get back to 5 wins, and I think that would be probably what I would – if the over-under was 5.5, I would probably take the under at 5. I don't know if they get to 6, but again, I think that's because I expect Cincy to be good. I don't see them winning a divisional game, and I know that's crazy because AFC North, everyone always steals something, but they're not as good as Cincinnati. They're not as good as Pittsburgh. They're not as good as Baltimore.
Yeah, and no Garrett that's tough. That really hurts them. The Raiders won 3 games last year. They bring in Clint Kubiak, the aforementioned Clint Kubiak.
Now this is interesting.
This is an interesting one as well. If you think highly of him as a head coach, I think obviously we don't know what any of these first-time head coaches are like as head coaches. But we've seen Clint Kubiak's impact on multiple quarterbacks, especially Sam Darnold, and winning a Super Bowl and all of that, and what he did with that offense in general. So it's fair to say that the assumption should be that there is some sort of a resurrection of the offense in Vegas, regardless of what they have to work with at quarterback currently. Kirk Cousins, if he's the starter, is a competent NFL quarterback that can run any system that you put in front of him. And Fernando Mendoza, a top pick, is a moldable guy that you would expect Clint Kubiak to have a good impact on. And they have Bowers. They've got Genty. So they have players there to work with. What's a good expectation here from this group?
A good expectation is that you end the season going,
Mendoza's the guy.
Mendoza and Kubiak handshake meme. That's a team. Like we got the head coach quarterback. That to me is like the reasonable expectation, because a lot like what just happened in Chicago, you want, when the minds meet and it works, it is the biggest relief on the planet. Because when your team invests in a number 1 pick and your team invests in a stud offensive young coach, number 1 pick, your quarterback, like that is such a weird thing. Look at what happened in Minnesota. we know they have the coach. And it's like, okay, they'll go get the quarterback, and it hasn't worked out. And now it just feels like this. And it's even more depressing if you bring them in together and it doesn't work. So that to me is the reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
The reasonable expectation is that at the end of the year, you feel like that works. That works well. I think this is a team that can sneaky win some games. I mean, defensively, Crosby, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean. Like, it's not a talentless defense. It's a brutal division, a brutal division. But I really think this is a team that should end up with
double their wins.
Yeah, I should say they were at 6 wins. I feel like if they're below 6 wins, I'd be probably a little surprised by that. And maybe that's because maybe they end up with less than 6 wins because they just go with Kirk for a majority of the year and they take their licks, and then, they just don't win enough games at the end. But I think that if they're at less than 6 wins, I'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah, I think I would too. I expect him to be a good coach. I expect that relationship to work well. I think they did a lot of vetting, and even if Mendoza was considered the number 1 pick, they were clearly comfortable enough with him and that connection to take him with that pick as well.
Yep.
Jeff Hafley comes to Miami from the Green Bay Packers defense.
Yes, he does.
This is a hard one. I really don't know what the expectations are, because I don't know what expectations to put on Malik Willis in this offense, especially when they kind of gutted the offense. But I think I would just say as simply as I expect them to be a top half defense or close to it, because he is this defensive guru that's supposed to come in and really right that ship. I think it would be a success if we at least see some impact there. If offensively they falter, can't really blame him. I mean, they made the decision to go pay for a free agent quarterback in Malik Willis, and they're not tied to him for long term, so they can pivot quickly on that. But I want to see defensive improvement, much like I expected from Gannon, and we didn't get enough of it.
Nailed it. I want to see the identity. I want to see that this team has an identity and it knows what's going. The first year under Mike McDaniel there, we knew what the identity was. Like, that was the year they put up 70 points in the Broncos, right? Or whatever it was. Like, that identity, boom, I need it. As far as wins goes, I'd love for them. This is a team that I'd love for them to see Malik Willis work and for it to be like, this is fun, and then get to 6-7 wins and kind of be a surprise. I don't know if that's going to happen because they've gutted so much of that offense. But I'll say this: if they're a 6-win team or higher, then they played above their skis, and that means you got the right head coach, in my opinion. If this team gets to 6 wins, then or more, then it's like, hey, we got our coach now, and we're that would have been a gritty wins to get to 6 wins.
Yeah, because that's a tough division now too. So
yeah, I want to see an identity.
Going down the list, John Harbaugh goes over to the New York Giants, takes over Jackson Dart and company there. Yeah, I mean, Harbaugh is definitely the highest regarded head coach in this list, probably. Yeah. So do you?
What did they win last year? How many games did they win
last year? I think they won 6 games. Let me check. Giants won 4. They won 4-13 last year.
They need to win at least 7 games.
I think
they need to win
there. And that defense is really good too. I mean, they got dudes.
Yep. If they need to have, again, I need to see whatever their identity is, whatever it's going to be. Harbaugh, you knew with Harbaugh coach teams, at least in Baltimore, it was a ferocious defense. Usually a very good run game, a lot of play action stuff. I'm thinking pre-Lamar, a lot of that. So I think if everyone is healthy, Scatterboo and Dart and everyone's healthy, if this team doesn't get to 7 wins, that'll feel a little bit like, it could feel a little bit like, yikes, what's going on here? Are the Giants a little bit kind of cursed? Because this feels like a total franchise reset. They've gone with kind of no-name coaches, Joe Judge, and you think back to all of the different coaches they've had in the post-Coughlin era. It's been a lot of and then it feels like now they've just said, we're the Giants. We are resetting completely.
At the same,
if they don't get to 7 wins, it's probably a Jackson Dart issue. That's all I'm going to say. Is it probably then feels like it's a Jackson Dart issue, and then that's a concern.
I could see that. I think that this is a situation where they are bringing in a guy and they are expecting an immediate turnaround. So with that, I think the expectation should be to rapidly turn things around. And I think it should be even more than 7 wins, but I think given their offensive questions, like, you couldn't fault them, but I do think it needs to be 7-8 wins minimum, and they need to look really different, because I think this is kind of what Vegas wanted with Pete Carroll. They bring in a guy who they want to immediately change the culture and then have that culture raise the floor considerably. The ceiling, we don't know, because there's a lot of questions.
And that was a disaster. That was such a disaster.
So we'll see if Harbaugh can do the opposite here and raise the floor, and then you can talk about, okay, what's the ceiling with Dart? What's the rest of this?
It's funny, really quickly, I think Harbaugh has a chance to do what Belichick has not gotten a chance to do, which was like, all right, I got another team post my wild success. Belichick had coached for other teams, but Belichick hasn't gotten an NFL team post his wild success, right? His of considering, maybe the greatest of all time, but probably. So Harbaugh's getting a chance, and it's like, okay, what are you going to make of it? What are you going to make of it in this final 5, 6, 7 years of your coaching career? What are you going to make of it? And if he's able to turn the Giants into perennial playoffs, if he's able to make the playoffs 4 out of the next 5 years, I mean, that would be a massive accomplishment for him and his resume versus, where the Giants have been over the last 10 years. I mean, they have been poop the last 10 years.
Mike McCarthy to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh did win the division last year, which is crazy to say and think about. 10-7, didn't win a playoff game. That's closing in on a decade without a playoff victory. So, I mean, to me, that it may be unfair, but I think that's the expectation. Like, you need to win. Like, the reason Tomlin felt the pressure and the reason Tomlin probably left was, hey, this has gone on too long. I haven't produced a playoff winning team in 8 years. It's time for, a fresh start. So I think McCarthy comes in, and that should be the expectation, to win a playoff game. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to put the expectation of winning the division, because that's so volatile especially with what that division is. But
because games to not win the division.
Yeah. But I think absolutely, like, it's going to be judged by if he's able to get them to winning a playoff team. And then I say also, I think he needs to produce an offensive unit that's top 12 in the league. Like, this offense actually needs to show stuff, especially with Michael Pittman now coming on board, with them leaning further into now Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Like the offense just has to be a feared unit, going into each week, rather than a write it off as, oh, if we hold them to 20, we're going to win.
Well, dude, Warren Sharp says you don't have a great offensive line. So how good can you be?
That's crazy, dude. That's so upsetting. I don't understand how you can put it. I think you put it at 21.
I think that was a miss. I think
it's a top 6, like, easy. I don't even think you can put.
We'll see who's right by the end of the year. We'll see who's right.
We will.
I would have them in the top 10. It's really hard when you got offensive line, because you talk about, like, experience together and all this stuff versus raw talent.
Yeah.
Offensive line men too also it's the easiest position to be like, a dude falls off a cliff in a year. there's the outliers, right? Like the Trent Williams, the Lane Johnsons, who it's like it's a slow decline. But a lot of offensive linemen, when they hit that shelf, it's like, oh, that one injury caught them, and now they're just not the same guy because they're so big, and what you're asked to do is such an incredible task. I'll just say this about Pittsburgh. I think you nailed it. For me, my expectation would be like, I want to watch a Steelers game and be like, what is this?
Yeah, it's a lot. It looks a lot different.
I want it to look like a different team. I want it to look like Mike McCarthy's Pittsburgh Steelers, not the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know what the Pittsburgh Steelers have looked like. It's a little different because the Ravens, I would argue, would have felt that way too. But because of the Lamar era, it kind of has broken the John Harbaugh Ravens into two. Where for the Steelers, yes, I know it was like Ben used to only throw 170 yards a game, and then he was throwing 370 yards a game. But it just, I need it to feel like this is I'm watching something that it's like refresh. Like when I watched the Bears this past year, you watch the Bears, you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Like, what are they? That's the Bears. That's the Bears. Like, I need it to feel like, boom. And I would think the expectation is making the playoffs, and it's hard to win playoff games, but yes, winning a playoff game would be a giant win for Mike McCarthy. And then Pittsburgh would, I don't know what they do at the quarterback position, but that would be at least a Mike McCarthy was the right hire. Now let's find him his new quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the ultimate test with him, I think, is whether or not he'll develop the next quarterback. I mean, that's probably the ultimate expectation. That's hard to say for 2026 because the likelihood of any of these young quarterbacks getting meaningful time is pretty low. If they did, if Rodgers is out for the season after week 2, then the expectation kind of becomes higher up for Mike McCarthy to, show what you got in terms of your ability to communicate to two young quarterbacks, whichever it is, and get the best out of them. But I agree with a lot of what you said. And I think ultimately it is about, does the product look and feel different? That will.
It's like when the Lions won. It's like that second year with Dan Campbell when the Lions were like then vying for the playoffs. You kept watching games and be like, what is this?
Right.
This doesn't feel like the Lions. And I feel like Steelers fans need that. They need to watch the games and experience what Bears fans, what Lions fans have in the recent past. Be like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. I feel
we're
like
throwing over the middle of the field. How nice.
Yes, you need that complete refresh of the brain to be like, what am I watching?
Just a philosophy change.
Yeah.
Finally is Robert Saleh in Tennessee.
Salah.
We've talked about him before on the show and expectations of.
What are my expectations for Mr. Salah?
Yeah.
How many games did they win? 3?
They won 3 last year.
Listen, they brought in him and Brian Dable, and I think that alone makes me feel like the expectation should be like 5 wins. Like, you need to show that you are that's become a sneaky tough division. They're not as good as Indianapolis, Houston, or Jacksonville. So can you find a way to like steal 2 divisional wins, right? Can you find a way to be like, we stole a game in Houston and then we won at home against Indy, right? And then 5, maybe 6 wins. I would feel really good about the trajectory that they're on. The other thing I would just say is like, the expectation should be that he creates an environment for Cam Ward to shine. Because Cam Ward, I don't think we're talking enough about, and maybe we'll talk more about it when we get to those other quarterback rankings. It was not great. It was really not great. And a tough campaign.
Bad situation too. I mean,
bad situation. So we've seen this before where number 1 picks have a tough year in a bad situation. Caleb Williams had a tough year in a bad situation. You know what I mean? Trevor Lawrence, tough year in a bad situation. And we've seen some turnarounds, and we've also seen completely like out of the league in a couple of years. So this is a giant year. So I want to see Robert Saleh create a place where it feels like we have clarity on what Cam Ward can be. He's obviously not tied to Cam Ward. But we need to show that he has created a situation where it's like, we can be like, this is Cam's.
Right. Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of a longer leash too, given his history and the staff that he's put together. So
yeah, the staff
expectations are probably lower than most, but I agree. I mean, we need to see a step forward from Cam Ward to feel comfortable about that direction offensively. So I think that will reflect on Saleh's staff building. Did you bring in the right guy in Brian Daboll? And we'll find out. I also think you still, we've talked about it many times, you got to own your side of the ball. So I think the defensively, they just got to like stabilize and be a middle of the pack defense to help.
What's that?
Cam Ward. That will be a way to provide an environment for Cam Ward to flourish, is making a defense that puts him in a position where they can win games and get some more reps. So
absolutely,
that's a big part too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a fun exercise. We haven't.
There's 10 of them. A third of the league. It's crazy. Which I think caveat also puts a real pressure on the veteran coaches and the year 2 coaches to say we don't have as many excuses. A third of the league should be non-playoff teams. It's really hard as a first-year head coach to make the playoffs. Really hard. So if I'm an owner, I should look in my division, and if I have a new head coach in my division, I should look at my head coach and be like, you better not finish 4th.
Yeah.
Right? Like that should be the expectation for the tenured head coaches, which it's going to create a lot of tight rooms. There's some hot seats. We should maybe talk about that next week. It's like, all right, on the flip side now, take out all the rookie head coaches. Who are the ones that you would say hot seat? What are the 5 names you'd argue that are going to be gone at the end of the year?
Yeah, for sure. That'd be an interesting one.
I would argue the only rookie head coach that should fear for their job should be Todd Monken. I think he should fear for his job. And if I was going to put a second one on there, I would put Joe Brady on. Because, again, those expectations are so high. That's
true.
And it felt like a weird hire anyways, where we hired from within. And Josh Allen's going nowhere. They're building a statue of that man outside that new stadium eventually. So that would say those are the 2 rookie head coaches that the seat is starting warm and could end up as a one and done. But it wouldn't shock me if there's others, because if it goes as bad as it can go, it wouldn't shock me if there's others. But
I could see Jeff Hafley too. Like if the defense in Miami's bad and like everything's a dumpster fire, I could see them moving off. But they've been pretty loyal to some head coaches in the past.
And he has an advantage. You forget 3 years ago, he was the head football coach of Boston College. He's not new to being a head football coach and running a whole program. He can run a program. And so I would agree that it's a positive and a negative, right? You can argue then if it's not good, it's like, well, clearly this guy just doesn't have it. It'll be fun to think about who are the coaches that the seat is hot to start.
Yeah, it's probably quite a few. So we'll think about that for a future episode, of course, but that will do it for us here on this episode of the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. As always, subscribe, helps our show get in front of new audience members, and we appreciate the support as always, and we'll see you next time.